It is recording.
Should we start now?
Oh, we're going.
Are we going now?
No, he starts.
All right. In 3, 2, 1. Go.
I guess I'll go first. All right. Hello, how's everyone doing today? Thanks for coming. Argue, I guess, government, the legitimacy of it. I guess I'll just 5-minute introduction, talk about myself. Grad student studying economics. I've always been interested in why people do the things they do, incentives, human behavior. I'm an anarchist, I'm a libertarian, and I think that libertarianism is essentially an anti, or at least a skeptic of authoritarianism. I'm not really a fan of any authority figures. I am also an atheist, not a requirement. Religion, for the most part, is voluntary, except when they chop off part of your dick. So I've always been skeptical of authority, parents, God, governments, teachers, although I'm sure the professors at San Jose State are the exception. So that's sort of just me, and I've always sort of been that way. I mean, I wasn't raised that way. I was raised as an Orthodox Jew. My parents are not anarchists. But I've always sort of been skeptical of authority and gone my own way. I'll just give a few personal stories about that. One, I went to a small private school in Connecticut, and small. There was like 10 people in the grade. And when I was in 4th grade, the newspaper of Connecticut, called the News Times, went to different 4th grade classes of schools, and they would say, a winner, we're going to select one person from each school to be the winner. You have to write a poem called Why You Like Trees, and the winner will be in the newspaper. And I didn't really like the idea of being told what to like, so I wrote a poem called Why I Don't Like Trees. And I won. And so I think that sort of influenced me in saying, hey, you can, sort of say, screw you, and fuck the trees, and I guess sometimes people appreciated that. So that's just sort of who I am. Just another story, my grandfather died when I was 12 years old, and just 4 months after he passed away, my grandmother, my father's stepmother, got remarried. And I was really pissed about this. They were a very loving couple, wore like matching outfits, and the fact that she got married right like away pissed me off. And so I didn't want to go to the wedding, but my parents said, no, you have to go. So if I was going to go to the wedding, I was going to make it known that I don't approve and I'm upset. So it came time to go for the wedding, and I got dressed, and I found the ugliest tie I could find. And I don't really remember this, but apparently my aunt tells me this, and I must have said it to a few people. I went to my aunt and I said, during the wedding, what do you think of this tie? And she said, it's okay, not particularly great. And I said, I don't like it. That's why I'm wearing it. So that's sort of just who I am. And I guess that's my introduction.
All right. My name is Miguel Vargas. My main interests are history, political economy, and macroeconomics. I don't really define myself in any of the school of thought in economics. I need to get there, and together you need to study all of them. Maybe if I'm lucky enough to pursue a PhD, I will be, my main interest, I'm not going to hide it, is Keynesian economics, what is now called Neo-Keynesians. As you may know, like Harvard and even Berkeley, pretty much all the top schools are under Keynesian dean. Also, Bernanke and Yellen are Keynesians, so you can say that the policy making of the country now and the state of the art of economics has given a nod or an approval to the Keynesian side. What is the Keynesian side? Is basically that government has a space in an economy, and it has a responsibility. They don't really argue with should it be there. No, it's there already. So they have developed all these techniques on how to influence the economy, and it's based on what is called contracyclical economics. It means that when a country is in recession, the economy or the central bank or the government should stimulate the economy. When the economy is on overheating, the government should raise interest rates. So that's pretty much the side I'll be defending today. But I need to make clear that A government is how a society organizes themselves to form collective action decisions, and you cannot just point a particular government, because the government of each country is a different one and has taken a long time to evolve. For example, the Japanese system has a very particular voting method that if we were to just implement in my country or where I was born in Colombia or the United States, it wouldn't work. So in a way, I think governments are the product of free market in a way that people have tried many things in the past and we have just advanced. We came from tribal societies where the strongest was the king. Then we moved to monarchies where it's called the feudal system. And then after the feudal system, we came to like a kind of like, we can call it industrial revolution, but before that it was just kind of like nothing. After the industrial revolution, the most economies have adapted capitalism, and they have adapted what is called a democratic system. But a government can be any type of government. Hitler's Germany was a government, China has a government, Cuba has a government, North Korea has a government. So when we argue about government, in this debate, we should argue about the essence of government and not a particular government. Because I'm not defending here our government or Cuba's government. I'm defending the idea that as the evolution of ideas have advanced, humans have formed governments because they need it. It's the only way to make collective decisions. So I'm going to argue it from a Keynesian point of view that believes the intervention of the government is valid, and I'm going to argue it on a positive method that is what economics is about. So I'm going to try to argue under efficiency criteria and not try to go into ethics, because everybody will have their own opinion if government is good or bad. But that's, for me, that's very naive. And as economists, we should use all the tools we have already in our disposal to debate it. And I'm going to try to use externalities, Pareto efficiency, property rights, the Coase theorem, and central banking. Thank you.
All right. You have 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll probably use it all. I do agree with Miguel that I'm not going to attack a particular government, but the institution itself. When talking about should the government exist, what the role should be, the first question, there are a few prerequisite questions that we have to ask first, and that is, how should human beings interact with each other? What separates the civilized person from the barbarian? And there are really only two ways to interact with each other. There can be a combination of ways, these two ways, but there's only two ways. One is voluntary, persuasion, reason, trade, and the other is coercion. To give an example, suppose I want to have sex with a woman. Okay? There's only two ways I can go about it. One is voluntariness, persuasion, have sex with me, I'm really good at it, I'm quick so it won't take a lot of your time. A reason, persuasion, and if she says yes, and hopefully she will one day, great. And if she says no, there's only two things I can do. One is the civilized thing, saying, okay, my desire to have sex with you does not trump your desire to not have sex with me. It should be a mutual arrangement where we both want to benefit. It's your body, and I'm not going to use you as a means to an end and as an object to satisfy my desires. If you don't have sex with me, okay, I'll find someone who will. If I don't, well, that's why they invented bathrooms. That's the civilized way. The uncivilized way is rape. I don't care what you need. I don't care what your desires are. The most important thing is what I want, and I'm going to have sex with you whether you like it or not, and we can do this the fun way or we can do this the hard way. How many people here support the second way of having sex? None. It's barbaric. It's disgusting. Rape is violent and coercive, and that's not the way we should be dealing with things. What's your name?
Radassa.
Huh?
Radassa.
Radassa. I see he has a very nice leather jacket. Well, if I want his leather jacket, I could say, I'll trade you my shirt for it. I'll give you $100. And if he says, great, I get the jacket. And if he says no, I could either take the jacket, which is uncivilized, which is barbaric, Or I can respect his right saying it's your jacket. This is a debate. Now, I would argue that Miguel is being contradictory by even agreeing to debate. Because a debate is trying to convince someone based on persuasion, not through coercion. I'm not going to go to people and say, were you an anarchist before the debate? No. Are you an anarchist now? No, you still didn't convince me. I'm going to bop you over the head. I hope you become an anarchist. I hope I can convince you. But if not, okay, it's your views. I'm not going to beat you up, right? If Miguel believes that coercion is justified, then why even engage in debate? It seems like a waste of time. It's not a real debate if at the end of a debate you bop people over the head who disagree with you. That, I would argue, is the civilized way people should interact with each other. Now, is force justified? Yes. I'm not a pacifist. I think force is justified in defense. To use the first example, if I attempt to rape the woman and she kicks me in the nuts, it's perfectly justified for her to kick me in the nuts. It's not justified for me to rape her, but it's justified for her to defend herself against me by kicking me in the nuts. The retaliation of force is legitimate. I very much agree with Miguel's favorite philosopher, Ayn Rand, who said, everything that makes the initiation of the use of force morally egregious makes the retaliation of force a moral imperative. If the initiation of force is wrong, the defense against it is right. So I'm not a pacifist. I believe you have the right to be a pacifist if you so choose, but I believe that force is justified only in defense, not in coercion. Therefore, that is the only proper way human beings should interact with each other. Now, let's talk about the government. Is it possible, at least theoretically, to have a government which only limits itself to using force when, let me go back for a sec. Kant talked about, I disagree with Kant, but one of the things that I think Kant said concerning ethics is correct. And Kant said that an ethical view is one that whatever view you espouse, you should want it to be universally applied. If you say, this is what I claim to be moral, but I don't want other people to act this way, you're not acting moral. If you don't want other people to copy your actions, you're not acting moral. So morality is everyone should act the way you espouse. If you say no, people shouldn't follow my morality or acting unethical, I think that libertarianism fulfills that. I think if everyone in the world followed the non-aggression principle, there would be no force. There would be no force in retaliation, because if everyone is only going to use force in retaliation, then no one's initiating it. So no one would ever murder another human being. It's the philosophy of peace and aggression. And all criticisms, such as what about theft, what about violence, those are people who don't follow the non-aggression principle. And so the argument is not to break the non-aggression principle, but to deal with those violent people and to persuade people that the initiation of force is not the way people should interact with each other. Okay, now the government. What is a government? Is it possible to have a government which is not the initiation of the use of force? I would define the government as, and this is a definition does not originate with me, Max Weber defined it this way, Ayn Rand defined it this way, Professor Hummel defined it this way. If you type on YouTube Obama nation state, the President of the United States defined it this way. The government is a legitimized, which is not the same as legitimate, a legitimized monopolization of the use of force within a given territorial area. The government claims the legal right to use force in areas where they would say if you use force in these ways, you would be thrown in jail. The government says it's okay for us to use force in certain areas, but not okay for you. Violates the Kantian criterion for morality. It says, don't act like me, or we will throw you into jail. Right? It's nothing but a hypocrite. The government says it's okay for us to have police, it's okay for us to have courts, but we're not going to allow people to compete with us. We'll throw you into jail. Lysander Spooner was an anarchist, and they threw him into jail for opening a private post office. They threatened to throw him into jail for opening a private post office if he didn't shut it down. So the government says, act like me, and that's evil. There's a scene from the movie L.I.E., if anyone's seen it. It's a great movie, where the father comes home from work and says to his son, how was school today? And the son says, shit. And the father goes, watch your fucking mouth. Now, how was school today? That's government. The government says violence is wrong, except when we do it. And so if you're interested in eliminating violence, this causes a confusion. well, if I look up to the state as good, and I copy the state, I'm committing violence, and if I look at the state as bad, why should I follow its dictates? So the state cannot reduce violence in any coherent way, and it just has euphemisms for doing the violence that it does. Manslaughter, if we accidentally kill people, collateral damage when they do it. Theft when we do it, taxation when they do it. So government is inherently aggressive because taxation is the initiation of the use of force, and restricting competition is the initiation of the use of force. There are either two possibilities. Government is offering legitimate services or they are not. If government is offering illegitimate services, they're initiating force by offering illegitimate services, and if they are providing some legitimate services, they are initiating the use of force against other people who attempt to provide those same services. If government did not restrict competition, it would not be, and did not have a taxing power, it would not be a government, but simply one of many numerous defense agencies on the market. Its coercive monopolizing power is what makes it a state. Now, some people have said, well, we vote, and the fact that we vote means that we agree to have government. This is not just a group of people who take over some territory. They run for office, they're only there for a certain amount of years, and we can vote them out. Well, I think that Herbert Spencer said it best when it came to the subject of voting. So let me just read him, if I may. Perhaps it will be said that this consent is not a specific but a general one, and that the citizen is understood to have assented to everything his representative may do when he voted for him. But suppose he did not vote for him, and on the contrary, did all in his power to get elected as someone holding opposite views. What then? The reply will probably be that by taking part in such an election, he tacitly agreed to abide by the decision of the majority. And how if he did not vote at all? Why then he cannot justly complain of any tax, seeing that he made no protest against its imposition. So curiously enough, it seems that he gave his consent in whatever way he acted, whether he said yes, whether he said no, or whether he remained neutral. A rather awkward doctrine, this. Here stands an unfortunate citizen who is asked if he will pay money for a certain pro-offered advantage, and whether he employs the only means of expressing his refusal or does not employ it, we are told that he practically agrees, if only the numbers of others who agree is greater than the numbers of those who dissent. And thus we are introduced to the novel principle that A's consent to a thing is not determined by what A says, but what B may happen to say. I think that's a pretty good idea, that voting can't be consent. If no matter what you do it counts as consent, that's not real consent. I think the fact that you vote doesn't mean you agree to anything. To me, voting, to use an analogy, is walking down the street and two muggers come up to you with guns. And one says, give me $1,000 or I'll shoot you. The other one says, give me $1 million or I'll shoot you. But we're nice robbers. We're going to let you vote on which one of us you want to be robbed from. And if you say neither, we'll decide amongst ourselves or ask other people to vote for us and give them a share of the booty we collect. So you say, the guy who's only going to rob me for $1,000. Have you consented to be robbed? That's ridiculous. No, you're doing the worst of a few possible alternatives. My father once gave me shit for not voting, and I said to my father, if the only people running were Hitler or Stalin, would you vote? And my father said, yes. They're not equally evil. One must be more evil than the other. That doesn't express much consent of the idea of voting. Let me just say one more thing before I finish. He's going to argue for efficiency. He's going to argue that government produces good quality. But you can't when coercion is used. Coercion means my ideas are shit. A parent who beats his child is saying, I am a bad parent. I can't reason with my kid. I can't convince my kid to do things persuasively. All I got is my fists. I am a sadistic bully, and I can't result in persuasion. If I have to rape a woman, I'm saying, I'm not a good lover. So if your ideas were truly good, if your ideas were truly beneficial, you wouldn't have to enforce them on people. People would do it voluntarily. You only have to force things on people when your ideas suck, and it's not beneficial, and the only reason they do it is because they don't want to get beaten up. How much time do we have? 3 minutes? I'm going to use the whole thing. So that's confession that your ideas are shit. If you have to use force to get other people to follow your ideas are not good.
You save them.
Government is not efficient. I mean, is he really going to argue that bureaucracy and a one-size-fits-all view, and when there's no profit and loss system, and where there's a lack of competition, you're going to get better quality than where there's competition? I mean, in government, it's very hard for people to get fired. My mother works for the government. I'm not going to say what department to protect the guilty, but my mother works for the state, and a woman who was incompetent, who she wanted to fire, she couldn't, and the woman asked for a raise, and which means she would be transferred and my mother could hire someone else, and my mother gave her a letter of recommendation to get rid of her. If you're incompetent in the government, you get a raise. Not in private industry. My father's a CEO, he fires the incompetent. My mother always said to me, you should work for the state. It's hard to get fired, and if you're incompetent, they give you a raise. So I guess that's my introduction. Thanks.
All right.
So you have 5 minutes to cross-examine what he said.
So, to be honest, like, if people are looking at us and they don't know who we are, they will never get join economics. Because you just you talk about random stuff, rape, like, I mean, government doesn't have, I'm talking about government as an institution. And of course, it's divided into judicial power, that I guess you're touching on it. But in any government, in any world, even in the most crazy country, rape is illegal. So that like all that story, I think was a waste of time. Not to be rude, but I'm just saying like it's a lot of personal ideas you have, but no backing. The only philosopher you named was Kant. I can address that because like in ethical purposes, he was saying that you have to pretty much like Christianity, like do to the other what you want to expect from the other ones, right? But that doesn't apply to government because government is an abstract. So you cannot think as government as a person, because that's why we don't have kings. Back in the day when we had a monarchy, it was unfair that the king could have sex with every woman he wants. He used to the British Empire. They used to go to Scotland and Ireland, and as part of their taxing, they used to pick the pretty woman. So that was illegal, but that was monarchy. That was an unevolved government, and our government still has a lot to evolve and a lot to change. But what you were saying is that it's pretty much like a caricature. It's kind of like a joke of what government is. Second of all, you talked coercion. I guess you have a point there. Like the government does have coercion and does have a monopoly of coercion, and it's just clear why. If we don't have a government and I killed your mom, you will have to hire your friends or cousin to go kill me. So we do give our power of retaliation to a government, and it makes us safer, not the opposite. Second of all, we are not angels. There's bad people. So not everybody's going to agree. What you say, if everybody agrees on no pacifism, you say something like, what do you call it? The something like people just live peacefully. Like if I agree not to attack you, I don't need a coercion. I don't need that. That's just thinking we live in heaven. We don't live in heaven. It's always people that, first of all, they might be crazy. So it's not even that they want to, but it's other people that for some weird reason they like raping, they like killing, they like robbing. So you need an enforcer. And that enforcer, we cannot, if I want to study economics, I don't need to be lifting weights and learning how to fight with a knife because I need to protect myself. We have police. So all of this is very, it has a very strong reason to exist. And if you want to debate it, you have to have very strong arguments because the ones you have were just jokes pretty much. Like if I want to rape a woman, she says no, she says yes. So you waste like all your stuff just talking about personal jokes. But as I said, like if we have people that don't know our economics, they will never get you in economics. Because you never touch one point of economics. So a question for you, knowing that you're an anarchist, is about property rights. Anarchists believe that you own all your salary, right? So like you can sell yourself. So most of the anarchists, they think slavery is okay if you sign for it. But one of the reasons of government to exist is to protect the weak. There is people that don't know how to sign a contract, and that's why contracts have to follow this thing called good faith, and it's in the law. The law book says that any contract has to follow good faith. If you become anarchists, they don't follow any principle. Any contract is valid. I can sell here. I sell my soul for $1 million, and he can give me $1 million. Even though in reality you cannot do that right now, because a soul is not a good. Same, who has property rights of your kid? The parents or the kid? Can the kid go work? Now the government protects the weak. The kids cannot work. They need to study. On an anarchist society, the parent can pick, oh, my kid doesn't have to work. I'll go to study. I'll make him work in the mines. And that's perfect. Or maybe the kid will have the property right. And a 6-year-old can say, I don't want to go to school. So how would you answer the property rights of slavery and minor protection, even animal protection? But I will go there further when I have a minute to talk.
I'll try to address that all in 5 minutes. Yes, rape is illegal. So is theft. Government taxes, that's theft. So is murder. Government commits war. Illegal for thee, not for me. Go to Abu Ghraib if you think the government doesn't rape. Do you know that more males are raped in this country, and that's because most rape occurs in prison? Now, I'm not saying that the governments are doing that, but they're certainly not stopping it, and it seems to me the easiest to stop rape when people are encaged. So a government, this idea that government is against rape or stopping rape, why does most rape occur when people are closest to government in prison, and go to Abu Ghraib and stuff like that? So I disagree with that. He said, well, people are not angels, and that not everyone's going to believe the non-aggression principle. That's true. People are not angels. The argument for anarchy is an argument for decentralization. It's an argument for dispersion of power. It says people are not angels, so the solution to make sure that people are not angels are not to give them an army. The solution is not to give them the power to tax. If people are truly not angels, the solution is to make power as dispersed as possible instead of centralizing it. Because yes, it's true people are not angels, but, and this is, I think, your flaw, you said government is an abstract, it's not people. Really? Obama's not a person? The politician's not human beings? It's composed of human beings. And the people in government are not more angels than anyone else. In fact, I would say they're less so. Because they lie for a living and they steal for a living and they like bossing other people around. So yes, people are not angels, and you need systems of protection, but I would say the best way to ensure that is through competition. If a company goes out of business because other people are competing with them, they're more inclined to do well-behaved. The reason Burger King doesn't charge $10 for a hamburger isn't because of laws against price gouging, it's because McDonald's will charge you for less. Competition is the way to ensure that people are less likely to take advantage of people.
So you want everybody to
let me
talk police?
Let me talk, please, and then you can talk, because I want to address all your issues. So the competition is the way to solve that issue. I think if someone has a guaranteed way to get income, why would they do a good job? A government says, I get your money from taxation, and whether I provide the service or not. People have called the police, and the police hasn't shown up. And people have sued, saying, we called the police didn't show up, and we got hurt. And the court says they're under no obligation to protect you. So that's government for you. They have to give us money. You know what we give you in return? That. So there's no guarantee. If people are not angels, why do you trust the state where there is no competition? Dispersed power is a solution to that problem. He also said that not everyone agrees with the non-aggression principle. True, but as I said, the argument is for decentralization. So you'll have one community that maybe will have some rules that are unjust and another community that won't. You know, I believe in states' rights in the 10th Amendment in the sense that it's better than the central government. Why? Because the central government is so much better? No, it's because it's easier to leave a state than leave an entire country. And if the laws are uniform throughout the entire country and they're unjust, you're screwed, right? A one-world government would be in a hell on earth for that very reason. So I would argue you may have some rules which you don't like, but the solution is decentralization as much as power, and then you'll have more options instead of centralization. You know, government in the last century killed 260 million people. 260 million people. Now let me just read one more quote. He said, I didn't mention anyone else. This is a quote by Robert Higgs. Anarchists did not try to carry out the genocide against the Armenians in Turkey. They did not deliberately starve millions of Ukrainians. They did not create a system of death camps to kill Jews, Gypsies, and Slavs in Europe. They did not firebomb scores of large German and Japanese cities and drop nuclear bombs on 2 of them. They did not carry out a Great Leap Forward that killed scores of millions of Chinese. They did not attempt to kill everybody with any appreciable education in Cambodia. They did not launch one aggressive war after another. They did not implement trade sanctions that killed perhaps 500,000 Iraqi children. In debates between anarchists and statists, The burden of proof should clearly rest on those who place their trust in the state. Anarchy's mayhem is wholly conjectural. The state's mayhem is undeniably factually horrendous. So government has a track record which is pretty horrible, and if you're interested in protecting persons and property, don't go to the wolf to ask to protect the hen house. Don't go to Charles Manson and say, protect me. That's not the solution. Government has a history of violating people's rights, and they're not the protector. Police, when they kill someone, get 2 weeks paid vacation. And, time's up? 2 weeks paid vacation, and how many police are in jail? Police get away with killing innocent people more. So if you really are serious about stopping violence and protecting property, don't do it where a group of people get guaranteed revenue and a lack of competition.
That's time for that. Miguel, you now have 15 minutes to make your main points.
All right.
Not respond to what he said.
Well, like, I mean, the whole concept of government have killed these many people and anarchists haven't is stupid, because anarchists have never been in power and they will never be. So it just doesn't make sense. If you never have power, you're never gonna be blamed for anything. But so like, it just doesn't make sense. And first of all, we do need a government. If we don't have a government, we'll be dispersed in little villages, and all our system is gonna collapse, and we all be unemployed tomorrow. So I have to ignore that. But anyway, I will start with property rights. The anarchists and libertarians that I respect more than anarchists, because libertarians, at least, I actually voted for Ron Paul last elections. Property rights is basic for a libertarian. And they recognize government because the government is the only institution that can protect property rights. Property rights without an institution that enforces them are not really clear. And when property rights are not clear, we found a lot of inefficiencies in markets. So that's one of a very economic reason for governments is pretty much defining property rights. And that goes hand to hand with a libertarian approach of property rights. Because the only way for a libertarian to have the more freedom is for property rights to be completely defined and respected, and without a government, it wouldn't be. The second, more philosophical than anything, approach of government is security. The feudal lords, they started their countries based on protection. They will let all the farmers cultivate the adjacent land to their castle, and they will tell them they will protect them, and they will pay them some part of the crop. So it's protection. That's efficient because that means that people are gonna get robbed, and they can kind of insure each other. Like if we get robbed in this area of the country, all the Serbs are gonna fight there, and there's gonna be a lot of Serbs. But if you don't have government, this guy's gonna get robbed, and this guy's never gonna help him. He doesn't have any interest. So you do need a central entity organizing and enforcing. Hey, it's time to fight. We're fighting. So armies are important. Second, if we move forward to the present, privatizing police will be the most scary thing ever. I agree, police is scary, but it's because police is made of humans. We just need better education, and we need to pay them more, and we need to have police like in Canada. In Canada, police officers have to have a bachelor's. So, and they need to speak 2 languages. So I really think moving forward, if we can get our hands in government, we should push for a policy of police officers need to have a bachelor's. They need to have civil rights classes, human rights classes, every time of classes to make them know the rights of the people, and they need to speak 2 languages at least. Especially in California, most cops should speak Spanish because that's the people that are arresting and mistreating most of the days. So in Canada, when you go to French Canada, police officers speak French and English. And when you go to I live in Vancouver, they speak French or Spanish or Hindu or any other language, but they have to speak 2 languages. That encourages them diversity. So the problem is not police. The problem is good police, how to make it better. And the answer is not having private police, because that will make Bill Gates have his own police, and he will do whatever he wants in his own city, and he will never get arrested. Because at least Obama can get arrested if he drives drunk. Bush got a DUI in the 70s, where the police was more corrupt, driving drunk. So that proves that there is good police officers, and that proves that at least in this system, most people are not under the law, above the law. So you can say that some people are corrupt, yeah, but it's a clear example there on the 70s where this country was more corrupt. There were cameras on the police officers. Bush got a DUI. So that being said, we don't have a king anymore that can just screw us over. We have senators in jail. We have Obama trying to be impeached. So there's a lot of ways to use government and the tool we have to fight it. We have people saying Obama is not a citizen, they're not going to jail. We have people even saying they should kill Obama, and they're not even in jail. So we have a lot of crazies doing their thing under free speech. Going back to economics, the biggest example in any textbook about why government should exist is externalities. And more than the negative externalities about pollution, that everybody can kind of have a hint why we need a government, I will focus on positive externalities. So there's a rule that nobody can deny if they study economics, because it's like a rule that externalities that are bad are produced more than efficiently. And externalities that are good are provided less than efficiently. And that goes to research and education. The internet was created by the military, and it was made with tax money. Why? Because we were fighting the Germans. The computer, like I remember the name of the first computer, I think it was called Colossus, like something like that. It broke up the German code. And from there, a lot of coding started. So the private market cannot capture the benefit of a discovery. So they don't really invest the money in the discovery. Another example that is very famous is Exxon. Exxon used to be the guys that have the photocopy machines. So they were highly invested on a paper, and they didn't want to leave paper. And these Exxon guys, they discovered pretty much the laptop before even Bill Gates and Jobs. But they hid it because they put it outside will just collapse their industry. It's no way to interrupt that. Right now, maybe a grant from the government can make him sell it to the government, and the government can just give it for free. Same happened with Ebola, for example. Right now we have Ebola. People didn't invest in Ebola because it wasn't there. Right now that we have a crisis, it is creating the market incentives for people to invest on Ebola. But we could have that before if government had foresight. They couldn't just put money, hey, let's invest on this. So pretty much, if you want to go to the moon, that maybe you don't want to, but going to the moon has created a lot of very cool stuff like engine turbines and all that stuff. War has created a lot of inventions too, but pretty much research that is crucial for us to advance has to be is not efficiently is not efficiently allocated under a free market. We also have the Pareto efficiency that everybody will hear about Pareto efficiency pretty much for the first class. It says that in a free market, when people cannot trade without hurting each other, they're not going to trade. Economists, we have we have engineered ways of getting out of a Pareto. Pareto is just an efficiency that is extreme, but we know when to make somebody trade. For example, when we build a highway from here to LA, and it's a house of a little lady that she thinks her house is worth $1 million, we don't give $1 million. We value the house in a market price, and we give her 20% more of the house. So she's making 20% of the house just because she's on the way of everybody else's efficiency. In a Pareto efficiency world, it's pretty much defend the status quo. And without a government, under anarchy, that lady will never be forced to move. If we have a perfect world, because in a real anarchy, people that want it will go with an AK-47 and they will burn the house because there's no police and there's no army. But just assume everybody's an angel, is to make a point. They cannot move the lady because she has property right from her house, and their house is on the way of a highway. So now we have to build a bridge in the ocean that is so expensive just because we have to respect an individual approach over a collective approach. I'm an individualist. I believe in free markets, but I know that government should be there to buy the house and make the highway. And that's how we have the country we have right now, and that's how every decent country works. If you just start defending a little house, oh, I live here and I have my kids here, so my sentimental value of a house that is 50,000 is 1 million, and I won't agree with that. That's just silly and naive, to say the least. But to just make the point is, we have a way to value collective action, and it's called the social welfare utility function. That is based on a utilitarian approach that adds all the utility of each people, and whoever utility is the most, that's the plan we take. That also justifies taxes for fighting poverty. Like on an anarchist system, if the utilities or the preference of all the anarchists are we don't give a damn about poverty, then they're not going to do anything. And as I said, charity is a positive externality that is going to be under allocated. So somebody has to take that position, and it's the government. Government has to care for the weak, that's the kids and the elderly. Nobody's going to take care of them. And even if we assume in the anarchy system there's going to be preference for charity, that's the invisible hand to the extreme, we can prove that it's not going to be efficiently allocated. We need more. Second of all, if we don't care about our kids going to school with food, they're not going to be able to win a Nobel Prize in the future. So education is a noble and very important investment that is under allocated in the free market. So if you value education, if you value health, if you value the dignity of the elderly, you need to value government. Not government as an example of today's government, government as an idea of how to make collective decisions. So if you want to see the government, you shouldn't waste your time trying to be an anarchist and say, oh, if we stop government today, everything is going to be better. That's a very silly assumption, and it's not even provable. So if you want to use your time, you can try to make your anarchist values that are not really anarchist, because anarchist means without rules. So most of the anarchists nowadays, they believe in governance, which is a way to call the government they want. So they do believe in government. So they shouldn't even use the term anarchist, because they're not really anarchists. There are anarchists that are using the term to just be crazy, and that's it. They believe in governance, so they do believe in a government, and they believe in decentralization, that is a way to divide the power in government. So that's our government term. So you believe in decentralization, you believe in power, and you believe in delegating power to the government. So that's a government, and that's what I'm aiming for. I also believe in this decentralization, and I believe that the way to change a government is by political action. If you don't like police, we should just get together and start manifesting tomorrow about police brutality. It's about police brutality that upsets me, and I'm kind of ready to join it. I'm very I consider myself an activist in certain topics, and I say it's hard to do it, but somebody has to do it, and it has worked. If the government was so bad, black people wouldn't vote, and Jewish people wouldn't be allowed to go to play golf in a lot of club golf courses. Because if you go back to the 60s, private clubs excluded Jews from playing golf in their courses, same as black people. So if you can see how we improve in 40 years, is a proof that government can be shaped by people. So I like this quote that you have to remind me who wrote it, but it says, if you want to change something, start changing yourself. The government is built of our people, of people like you and me. So just get better at electing your leaders. Like, just elect a good student board. Just get involved. The answer is not just saying, oh, everything sucks, everything is bad, just shut it down, and I think that will work better. That's a very easy approach that is not proven by any math, any criteria, any economics. It's just for me, it's a lazy way to attack people who are trying to do something with an approach based on assumptions. If we take the government down, we can decentralize, and we will have our private police, and we have our private prisons. And they go even further to say that everybody's going to be free and happy, so they don't even need a prison, or it's a joke. Because you always need a prison. It's always going to be a killer. It's always going to be somebody getting drunk and beating their wife. So we need a place for people like that, and we need to make it abstract. Like, we cannot have a guy owning prisons. Because what will happen when his kid kills somebody? He's not going to put it in prison. We need something that is abstract. I know it's made of people, but it's abstract in the sense that it's a rule that applies to everybody. If Obama kills somebody and he's filmed or whatever, he's going to get the same years in jail that somebody else. You can argue that somebody with a better attorney will get less, but that's part of our system and we need to fix. I'm also very I oppose the media democracy we live on, in which the only way to get elected is by media. So I actually endorse Professor and Dr. Folberry his attempt to what he calls self-democracy. Also, Folberry is one of the most written intellectuals on our faculty. Maybe you have classes with him. He's the professor with more papers and more publications, and he's a Georgian libertarian. And being a Georgist or Georgian, he believes in taxing land. So to tax land, you need a government. So even Professor Folberry will agree of some kind of government that he calls governance, and he will agree with me that they're different, but I will just say it's the same. Thank you for listening, guys.
All right, you've got 5 minutes to cross-examine.
Sure. Miguel's very good at caricaturizing and distorting positions. Brilliant, I think, because he defines anarchies in ways I've never heard an anarchist define it. No rules.
The definition of a dictionary. So I cannot just open a dictionary. Definition of anarchy is no rules.
I can't cross-examine you if you respond. The cross-examine is me, and Lynn. Let's not have anarchy. Let's have rules now where I talk and then you respond after my 5 minutes.
Yeah, but if you say anarchy, you never seen that definition. I have an issue with that because like everybody knows that definition.
That's not lack of rulers, not rules. Okay. So he says anarchy is no rules. He says that he makes a lot of assumptions which I think are incorrect. One, he makes a fallacy of if government doesn't do it, it won't exist. Well, we need to protect property rights, and we need a government to do so. Well, he didn't explain why we need a government to do so. He simply said we need to protect property rights, and therefore government should do it. We need to eat. Does that mean government should provide food? We need to have clothes. Does that mean government should make clothes? We need houses. Does that mean government should build houses? The fact that you need something does not imply that government has to be the provider of that good. Also, in the words of Hans Hermann Hoppe, the person on my shirt, an expropriating property protector is a contradiction in terms. You can't say, give me your money or your life so I can protect your money or your life. You can't violate property rights in order to protect them, right? That's like killing you in order to prevent you from dying. So if government truly protected property rights, how can you justify theft and taxation and all that other stuff? So that's one. He ignores opportunity costs. You say, well, government has to invent in the moon. But you have to look at the seen versus the unseen, as Frederick Bastiat talked, and what could have been invested had people been allowed to keep that money. It's true you can look at many useful services government has done, but you also have to look at what could have been to replace it. If people have been able to keep their money, and who's going to invest their money wiser? A person who worked hard and earned that money and cares about how that money is being spent, or a person who they didn't work for that money, they just took it and it's not theirs, and it goes into the bureaucratic black hole. He talks about protecting the weak. Well, I assume that means he believes government represents the will of the masses. Well, if government represents the will of the masses, that means government is doing what the people want to do. Well, one of the reasons I'm a fan of anarchy is that it calls people's bluff. Let's test and really see if people are not full of shit. If you truly believe that government simply represents the needs of people to self-organize, that means if there was no government, does the compassion to help poor people go away? If you're saying taxation isn't theft given to the welfare state, most people want a welfare state. Well, in the absence of a welfare state, is the desire to give money to poor people going to go away? No, you'd find some other means if that was truly the case. But you could look before government got involved. You had churches, you had private organizations give charity. The poverty levels since LBJ's the war on drugs have been steady. And so my main, rebuttal to you is you haven't really provided why government should do a certain service. You just said, we need the service to get done, government should do it. You haven't explained why government should do it as opposed to why government shouldn't do it.
And you maybe missed the point. I said the invisible hand works, and that's why...
Oh, fine. You said externalities. Well, let me just address that for 2 minutes.
But wait, give me 1 second. You said...
You still get 5 minutes after this.
Fine. Let me just address the externality. He makes the externalities argument. Well, how about collateral damage, the externalities of war? How about the collateral damage of people getting shot by police? There's, government might provide public goods, but they also provide public bads. And you have to look at that. This idea that government can just cure externalities, based on what evidence? And how do you know if something is underproduced? The fact that you want more of it? Well, everyone wants more of something. Resources are scarce. That's the point of economics. We have scarce resources, and you can't use everything in every way. And through the profit and loss system, you understand what is profitable and what people desire. If someone could just decide this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and is not subject to profit and loss and being weeded out through competition, how do you know that you have too much or too little? Beyond you have not as much as I want.
Well, like for that, I guess you just have to go to simple micro. It's marginal benefit and marginal cost will give you the efficient stuff. But as I said, with a education, the provider cannot recover his cost, so his benefit is lower, so he's underproduced. So I said that charity will be underproduced in a free market, same as education. So I'm not ignoring that it's going to happen. I know that. I'm saying that it's part of your preference, but my preference can be I get more utility giving the dollar than consuming it. That can be the function of all the society, and then it might work. But we know it's not the case. It's going to be few people like Bill Gates trying to help the poor, and we know for a fact it's going to be underproduced because it's a fact of economics that positive externalities are underproduced. So that's just a fact. Why? Marginal cost versus marginal benefit. So that I think everybody can just review their first course of micro, and that will be set up. I don't need to give like a class of microeconomics because that's just so obvious. Externalities. We have the Coase theorem. That is one of the few guys that try to prove that property rights can be well defined on a free market. But Coase, what did Coase ignore? Transaction costs. So if you put transaction cost, then it's no way by any Nobel Prize or any economist until right now that says that the market can solve itself externalities. Pretty much, if we let the world, we without a government, the world would. Okay, my favorite example of property rights is birds. They can be very beautiful birds, and they migrate from Alaska to the United States. Nobody has property rights on the bird. In an anarchy situation, everybody can kill them because it's no property right, and that's it. The possible externality of seeing these beautiful birds cannot be quantified by anybody. Nobody can claim them. Second of all, in a definition of any anarchist that I read to prepare for this debate, they only care about the coercion of a human being. So pretty much, if I buy a cat, I can kill my own cat. Because under any definition of the anarchist, it says that my liberty can only be stopped if I harm any other human being. So that means I can buy every single dog and I can kill it. And I can torture him. So even in the evolution of ideas, the government has gotten so far and trying to be so ethic that it's actually protecting animal rights. So if we are getting far to protect animal rights, I think it's obvious why we protect the elderly rights, the kids' rights, not to work. In an anarchist system, as I said, a parent can maybe say, I don't want to send my